For those of you who don't know, we're doing this electronically.
Does it come up for you yet?
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Mine was. Oh, there we go.
Okay, the voting is closed and the motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously that we will approve the consent agenda. Moving on to our action agenda, the first item on this agenda is a request for approval of the Maloof and Nibley City CRA revision. And this will be presented by Jeff Steed, Matthew Holyoke, and Superintendent Norton.
Hi, so I'm actually John David Jorgensen. I'm filling in for Jeff Steed. I'm the Deputy General Counsel at Maloof, and I have Matt Holyoke with me. He is our Economic Development Manager at Maloof. And so just wanted to, to the extent you're not familiar with Maloof, give you a little bit more of an introduction about who we are and what we do. So Maloof was founded about 18 years ago and focused on sleep products, but really has expanded quite a bit since then to be more of a wellness company, is what we would consider all the different things that we're doing in our companies, our subsidiaries, and our affiliates. We've expanded. We have 1,200 employees now, with the largest number of those in one spot here in Cache County. At our headquarters, and we have 6 key categories that we focus on, which is consumer products, services, retail, technology, logistics, and also venture capital through Tamarack Capital. And so that's just a very quick introduction to us. Hopefully some of you or all of you are aware of what we're doing, but Matt will talk a little bit more about our B Corp status.
Sure. So Maloof is a certified B Corporation, and for those of you who might not be aware of what that is, which was me before I started working at Maloof, simply put, B Corporations are businesses who use their business as a force for good in the world and in their community. So we at Maloof have a triple bottom line, being profits, planets, and people. So going into a little bit more about what B corporations are, it's a legal status, but going above and beyond that, to become a certified B corporation, you have to go through a vetting process through a third-party organization who basically their job is to make sure that people really are who they say they are and do what they say they're doing in the community. Some other well-known B corporations you might be familiar with are Patagonia, Down East Outfitters, Ben & Jerry's, Burton Snowboards, Cotopaxi, Athleta, and Etsy. So some of those, you might think instantly, you might connect that with a cause or a certain thing that they're kind of focused on. So Maloof Companies is very much focused on those same kind of incentives, and John David is going to talk about one of the core causes that Maloof focuses on.
Yeah, the way that we focus that is through the Maloof Foundation, and really it's meant to combat child sexual exploitation. And we fight trafficking through our education, our training that we work with victims to build that training out so that it's very helpful and effective. Hopefully, I encourage everyone to take the training actually. And also supporting and creating safe houses for victims. You might be familiar with the Children's Justice Center home that was recently opened, that we were a big part of getting that up and going, and then also bringing justice to the trafficking victims. So we've been doing, the Maloof Foundation was started in 2016, and 100% of the what we raise goes to those causes. Maloof Companies pays for the salaries of everyone that works there. So anyone, donations all go to our efforts on those key 3 issues. And then also a portion of our sales at Maloof all goes to the foundation as well. And so what we're working on right now in our plans is this headquarters expansion. Many of you have probably seen our headquarters in Nibley, and you can see on the far right corner, that's the kind of a layout of our current building and some of the expansion we're doing internally. Initially, it was mainly warehouse, and as we've grown and have other warehouses in other parts of the country, our headquarters is we just keep expanding it into more and more office space. We're going to run out of office space and have a very exciting new building that we're going to build. You can see over on the left bottom corner with a lot more light, also some facilities for the employees, different amenities, things for a growing company that we're really excited about developing.
Yeah, and just to go one more thing on that, the main reason for this expansion is really because, like John David mentioned, we have over 1,200 employees throughout the world now. Our building is just not going to be able to sustain the growth that we're looking at. So we're trying to find ways to plan for that. And so really, what does that mean for the school district? So the school district will be the beneficiary of property tax once this building is up and running. And we've worked closely with the administration, Superintendent Norton, and others to come up with what we feel like are good terms for the school district to participate at, and that would be a 12-year CRA incentive with a 75% participation rate per year. And so just to put that into numbers to kind of give you an idea of what that really means. So right now, the land that this building that we're going to be constructing is built on is Greenbelt, no vacancy right now. And so really the school district is only getting about $78 per year for the property taxes that Maloof is paying for that land. Once that building goes up, which we anticipate to be valued at roughly $100 million, the property tax per year will go up to close to $750,000, which again the school district would be the primary beneficiary of. So right away, once the building goes up, if you take the 25% that the school district would still be receiving for that 12 years, it goes from $78 per year to about $178,000 per year. So I hope you can see that immediately you'd have some very serious benefit. And then down the road, that second chart, it shows within the 3-year period, it would be over $2 million a year that the school district would be receiving after this building's created. So again, this is helpful to Maloof because we, despite being a successful, growing, thriving business, we still, $100 million is a lot of money. So we need a little bit of help on our end. And then this is going to go eventually back into the school district, which we're very happy about. Some additional commitments that we've discussed and are hoping to provide. One would be actually more of Nibley City helping out with a 50% annual sales tax that's generated on the plot would be split between the city, and part of the 50 other percent would go to the school district. And that's sort of a way to justify only getting the 25%. So you would get additional sales tax money within that 12-year period as well. And then some things that Maloof Companies specifically is interested in doing with the school district. Once we have the ability to do these programs, we like to, again, like John David mentioned, we're a bedding and furniture company, and we've talked, very multiple times and kept a great line of communication with the administration in terms of, what Maloof and a company like Maloof might be able to do. And we feel comfortable that we would be able to help with some donating of teachers' chairs. There's another Maloof company known as the Impact Collective, which is a wellness app, which actually they have a few different areas that they focus on, some being addiction recovery and some being more in terms of just general wellness. And we have been able to commit to providing that base level service for all school district staff and high school students. We couldn't do younger than high school because of some HIPAA regulations, but we're very excited about that. And then the last thing is we already are working with Terry Lewis in the CEF, but we have some specific programs that we'd like to help out with in addition to what we're already doing. So the last thing I'll say is, again, Maloof has some very interesting employment opportunities compared to some other businesses in the area. We have one of the biggest, video studios. We do all of our content in-house. That's 3D rendering, all these different kinds of creative opportunities. And we're also open to dialoguing further on internship opportunities and kind of doing some programs to have high school students come to Maloof to see some of the benefit of these jobs that we're creating. So the last thing that we'd like to do is invite David Zook up to just make a brief statement.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you, board members. It's good to be here tonight. My name is David Zook. I'm the Cache County Executive, but before I was elected in January, I worked for Nibley City for the past 9 years as their city manager. So I've been working with Maloof, and maybe I could be a character reference for them today, I guess. They're good neighbors. They're really good neighbors, good community partners, and we were always very happy to have them in Nibley, and now that I represent the county, I'm happy to have them in our county. Proud of the growth that they've had as well as the impact they have on our community. And I just want to thank Superintendent Steve Norton and his staff. We've been working with them on this for quite a while since I was back at Nibley. And they've been great to work with and really helpful, and just want to thank them and Maloof for the collaboration and cooperation on this project. I think this will be a very positive project for our community, for the school district, for the students, and Maloof as well. So thank you for your support.
If you have detailed questions, these are probably the guys you want to ask, okay? So I'm just giving you a chance.
I have one question.
Yeah.
On your idea to donate for 100 new teacher chairs, how do you see, that wouldn't be full-time teachers, right? It would just be part-time teachers? What are you thinking on that?
Okay, go ahead.
So it will be, we mean the actual physical furniture
As opposed to college.
produce. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry for not, yeah.
I was
clarifying
thinking,
that.
man, you guys are so generous. Okay, thanks, got it.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question. You have a page on the information that we were given that's estimated uses of the tax increment that lists affordable housing and project area administration and road and public infrastructure. Can you explain that a little bit?
I can
That
attempt
page
to.
with you?
Yeah, so I actually just have my presentation slides with me today. I know what you're referring to, though. So we have another third party who's helped kind of navigate some of these things. And essentially what I think you're referring to is the ways that the money that Maloof will receive, how it will go back into kind of benefiting the community in terms of outside of just putting money into a building. It's going to be going into a road that will connect to, I'm trying to think of the road structure that will connect to. Yeah, that'd be great.
If you don't
Sure.
mind. Hello. My name is Justin Vaughn. I'm currently the Nibley City Manager. Formerly, I was the Public Works Director at Nibley City, so I was involved in some of these discussions. And there's actually quite a few public needs down in that area, of town. There's kind of a gap between where Maloof is and some residential housing. So there's some needs for connectivity to provide both Maloof employees as well as people in that area safe access onto the highway, 8991 in particular. So there's some transportation needs there, as well as some stormwater infrastructure, some pipes, and some stormwater ponds. Those are just the simple, easy ones that we can think of, but I'm sure those really haven't been set in stone necessarily, other than just there's a variety of issues that money could be used to help towards. So does that answer your question? Or
Yeah, so these aren't, so you're not set in stone answers my question. I just wondered how affordable housing fit into it.
I do have an answer for that. So state housing in terms of the CRA, that's actually a state statute that segment of money, I think it's 10%. Mm-hmm. Yep, 10%. Just by statute needs to go to CRA housing if there is housing, which in this case there's actually not any housing in our project area. So we're going to have to work closely with Nibley to figure out how that 10% is used. So, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Just, those funds are required, as you mentioned, under state law to be set aside for affordable housing. So those funds under that state law go to the redevelopment agency, which is essentially the Nibley City Council. They've set up a separate governing board to do that, but it is a redevelopment agency. And then that redevelopment agency will decide what to do with those funds. They'll be coming in, and there are a variety of things they could do with those, but they haven't gotten to the point of deciding yet because the money hasn't come in yet. It'll be a few years still. The building has to be built and reappraised and taxed, and the money comes in, and then once they start getting money, then they'll make some decisions. But they could use it for housing projects. They could use it for first-time home buyer programs, a whole variety of things.
Okay. All right, thank you. I was just trying to picture an apartment building next to the Maloof building with affordable housing in the apartment building. So I was trying to figure out how that all worked. Thank you for your explanation.
No problem.
Anybody else have questions? Did you
Okay.
want to say more?
I just want to talk to you a little bit about the whole history. I, too, would like to thank Maloof. They have come into our valley, and I don't know how long they've even been here. But I can tell you from experience that Dell and I have had over the years in our district, they meet the criteria that we think qualifies them to come and ask government agencies to be a participant in a project that will both benefit the project, the Maloof Foundation, and their company, and Nibley City, and wouldn't be such a detriment to the Cache County School District. So I'll just give you a brief history. Dale, were you here when the RDA was created with the city up north that ended up not generating any money for the district?
It was already created.
It was there? Okay. So Dale and I inherited what was called then an RDA that was located in a northern city, and so we had to live by the guidelines of that. And when we got all through the process, which it just ended a few years ago, so it was basically a project that went on for far too many years and ended up providing a city government with a lot of money to build a lot of projects that benefited that particular city and their government, but didn't create any taxable property for us to gain any value back. So as a net zero for us as a district. So Dell and I, over the years, have had many opportunities to bring to the board proposals from cities and corporations, and they've gone from RDAs to the now called CRAs, but the concept is the same. We give up some of our property tax value for a period of years to benefit from a project that will increase the value of the property, and therefore eventually down the road, we gain the benefit of having that property developed. And so we think this project is even better than when we presented it to you before. And I'm going to give credit to Dale. Dale has been a marvelous business administrator for me to have the opportunity of spending time with. He's always challenged me on a few ideas, and one is, what is the nature of the corporation, or why did they need to come and ask us for money to help with their project? That's always something that we take very seriously, because we're asking all the patrons of the Cache County School District to help in a little particular area of our district, and that's just Nibley, with the hope that helping that little project will be a great benefit to the whole district later on. And so Dale has always questioned, what kind of organization are they? And do they really need to be coming to a governmental agency such as the school district and saying, we would like to take some money that eventually could be for the education of kids and put it into our project in the hopes that down the road it's going to be a far better benefit to your kids than it is in sitting there as farm property or whatever kind of property. It's mainly greenbelt that we're talking about down in Nibley. So we felt Maloof met the criteria. Dale always said, let's keep it to the minimum amount of years that we can. The one project up north, I think, was 25 years. Yeah, way too long. 2 whole generation of kids and another half a generation of kids have gone through the system, not benefiting from the benefit of that. Then, in the early days of the RDAs, Dell and I go back far enough to know that they came in and asked for the total tax. Now we're talking about 75% of the tax right from the get-go, so that 25% will come to the district from the get-go. And we like that part of it. And we have never been able to get the cities that we're dealing with who actually live on sales tax and not property tax. We live on property tax. They live on sales tax. So when they ask us to contribute our part, it's tenfold what they have to put up. And so we've always, with Dale's idea in mind, we've always tried to get them to come back and say, we would like you to share some of your sales tax. If there's sales tax that's developed from the properties that we're going to work on, we would like you to give us a percentage of that to help offset the portion that we're putting in of property tax. Nobody's ever been willing to do that. And I'll be honest with you, Nibley wasn't willing to do it either. But Dale insisted that we kind of go down that road. And we now have two cities in the county that were willing to go down that road with us and share some of the benefits that immediately come in from having sales tax collected right as soon as the project's up and going. So we think this is a better deal for the school district. We recommend that we go into partnership with Nibley City and the county and Maloof, and that it would be our recommendation that you approve the new terms of this agreement. And I think that it's going to benefit Nibley, it's going to benefit Maloof, and it certainly will benefit us. And we think in the big picture, it benefits our great state of Utah. So, Dale, would you like to add any comments? Or Jared? Jared being relatively new, you got to come up to the mic, Dale. You can't get off that easy.
And the one thing about this project, too, is that it hasn't just been a locally developed CRA right now. it really has started at the state level. So I know they've been working with the Department of Economic Development, I believe, at the state. And there was a great write-up, I don't know if it was in the Herald Journal or at least in Cache Valley Daily just a few days ago, talking about the contributions the state is willing to invest into this same project. And so I think that gives us also a lot of good confidence that that this, from the state's angle too, they have recognized this as the type of project that qualifies well within the CRA rules. And so, I think Superintendent and I strongly recommend that this is a good project for the board to consider, and would give it our endorsement, I guess, and encouragement as we present that to you.
And for those sitting in the audience who might not know much about this whole project, because it's been on Dale and I's platter for months, Maloof has the opportunity of going to another great state in this country, and it's back to the state of Ohio, and they are able to pony up much more money than the state of Utah and Cache County School District and Cache County and Nibley City are. But they've elected to stay here, and I think that's one of the reasons Dell and I are so excited about this project is this is a homegrown company that I think you'll see on the world stage eventually somewhere down the road as a real nice corporation that's made their headquarters right here in Cache Valley. So.
I'll just add quickly, coming in on the tail end of this, I've been involved in a few CRAs over the years, and this particular arrangement does have all of the components of a good overall project that benefits everybody. So I also would recommend approval of the terms.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the Maloof and Nibley City CRA revision.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Maloof and Nibley City CRA revision. Is there any other? Nothing. Okay, then we'll vote.
Okay, the voting is closed and the motion passed unanimously.
Excellent. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you
coming.
your time.
All right, next on this agenda is a request for approval of the Cache County School District Early Learning Plan. And this is presented by Jacob Downs and Beverly Sanders.
Thanks for having us again, board members. It's great to be here. When we came 2 weeks ago, we gave some background around the early learning plan and the goals that we have set for our students in the school district in kindergarten through third, and including math, how that is beginning to be integrated into the plan. And tonight we wanted to open the floor to any questions and then give you the opportunity to vote on it.
Okay. I'll take a motion on this one.
I make a motion to approve the CCSD early learning plan. I second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded that we will approve the Cache County School District Early Learning Plan. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, then we're ready to vote.
The voting is closed and the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. We
Thank you
look
very
forward
much.
to seeing your great accomplishments.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we have the request for approval for graduations in I think it should probably say approval for graduation ceremonies. because of course we will approve graduations in 2021-22. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
What is the recommendation?
Is this for the foreign students or?
No, that's below.
No,
Oh,
this is just the discussion we had
This
on,
is the discussion we had last week with the principals.
Right.
And-
I'm just wondering what we're voting on, or are we voting on the actual, like the location, or just?
Right. So somebody make a suggestion.
Well, I'll just tell you one thing. I do have a meeting scheduled, but because campus is really busy right now with the upcoming semester, the earliest I could get the events coordinator and the vice president who kind of oversees recruitment was next week, and this is kind of retreat week for campus. So, I mean, I will have more information, and I had a kind of a lengthy email exchange with both of them, and they both think that the issues that were raised by the principals and assistant principals who were represented here were compelling, and so they're very willing to constructively address those suggestions. So I guess, until I get a chance to sit down with them, I don't know if it's sufficient for us to make a reservation to keep our options open, or what, what the board wants to do to proceed. But I guess I'm wondering, just to make sure I didn't miss anything, were the principals last week actually making a recommendation? I mean, I think it was just kind of an open discussion.
it was.
It was.
And I think what we're asking tonight, is there any input from the board as to the direction you'd like to see it go? And if we're not ready for a motion or anything like that, we can still take the input. I think we just heard some. You need time to have the opportunity to meet with people up on campus. I think we have time. I know principals would probably want to tell you that things are really tight, and that timeline has been really pressed by the number of schools going up to the campus so it was a matter of, after we got more than our high schools, then you had to start fighting for which day of the week you could get onto that scene. So I think that's, if I understand it, probably where most of the pressure came. If we do it on our own campuses, there's not that pressure, but there are some dates and things that need to probably be set within a reasonable length of time. So I just throw that out as.
Can I just propose that I go ahead and gather this information next week and come back? If for some reason, the university doesn't have any dates available right now that would be convenient, then, the question's moot. I guess then we only really have one option. But at least if I explore that, to see how open the schedule is. Well, not just that, but just to really directly address some of the issues that were raised, which I think are important.
I think we were the only people wanting the spectrum at that time of year. We're not in contest with basketball or anything else. So I think the dates will be there. It's just whether we make the recommendation that we go back up on campus.
Is everybody okay then punting on this until, for 2 weeks?
I'd like to make a motion that we table the vote on the approval of graduation until we get that information from the university and have a little more time to discuss it together as a group.
I second that.
Okay. It's been motioned that we table the approval for graduation ceremonies in 2021-22, and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
I have a question. Is it necessary that all schools do the same thing? Is it required that all go to the university, or could they have their choice and different high schools have different types?
Well, I would assume that that's our decision to make. And the principals who were here last week, didn't they say they would do whatever we asked them to? So if we want to leave it open, then we can do that.
Which is essentially what's happened the last couple of years, except nobody went up to the spectrum.
Right. Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded. Any other comments? All right, let's vote on the motion to table the approval for graduation ceremonies in 2021-22.
Voting is closed, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we will table this approval for graduations in 21-22 until Chris has time to meet with the events coordinators at USU and bring back more information about our concerns. Okay, thank you. Next, we have the request for approval of the 2021-22 school fees amendment. And I will take a motion on this.
I move that we approve the 2021-22 school fees amendment.
I second it.
Okay, the approval for the 2021-22 school fees amendment has been motioned and seconded. Any questions or comments, concerns? Okay, we will vote.
Voting is closed, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the motion is approved to, for the 2021-22 school fees amendment, and we will carry on with those additions of fees. Next, we have the request for approval of the board policies update, section 9,000, student registration regarding foreign students. And I will take a motion on this.
I move we approve the board policies update for section 9,000, student registration for foreign students.
Second.
The motion is to approve the board policies update, section 9,000, student registration for foreign students, or regarding foreign students, and it's been seconded. Any questions or comments? Kirk McRae is not here, but I'm sure someone is here who can answer them. All right, let's vote.
Voting is closed, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the board policies update of section 9,000 students and registration regarding foreign students has passed, and Kirk can move ahead with that. Next, we have the request for approval of the audit committee's recommendation for fixed asset increase. And this is the one that the audit committee recommends to increase the minimum dollar value for tracking fixed assets at individual schools from $500 to $1,000. And I think Larry would be first to vote for this. I will take a motion on this.
I move that we approve the audit committee's recommendations for fixed assets.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the audit committee's recommendation to increase fixed assets tracking from $500 to $1,000 at individual schools. Is there any comments, concerns, questions? All right, then we'll vote.
Okay, voting is closed, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The motion to approve the Audit Committee's recommendation to increase fixed assets from $500 to $1,000 tracking at individual schools has passed. Jared, will you or who will let schools know about that change in policy?
Yes, I will make sure that word gets around and work together with the others in the district office that need to be aware of that.
All right, thank you.
I'll take a point on it.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our reports agenda, we have a Green Canyon building update presented by Bruce Parker. Thanks for coming, Bruce.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate the opportunity. As you're aware, we're just about smack dab in the middle of the process of the classroom addition at Green Canyon High School. You're aware we're adding 10 rooms there. This is a project that's identical to the rooms that we added at Ridgeline High School.
Is this not on your screens because you're all turned around?
Nope, it's not.
Apologize for that.
Yeah, should be.
They're all on.
Okay, well,
Better put in a work order.
Well, I apologize for you having to crank your necks around like that.
Yeah, we're fine.
Your necks. But anyway, it's one of the good things about these projects is we're doing them fairly soon after the completion of the original construction of those buildings, and so it's allowing us to pretty well make them almost disappear. You don't see, they don't stand out looking different.
Oh.
We've been able to match the block and the various finishes that were used on the original buildings. We've been able to obtain the exact same products. And so that's really nice. And quite often when we add an addition to a building, you can't do that. And you do your best, and you never can get it exactly right. And so that's one of the nice things. You go to Ridgeline, you cannot tell that there's been an addition put there. And Green Canyon will be the same way. So this was a 9-month construction schedule is what we approached this with. Construction was started first part of April. The goal is to complete by end of December. So we're almost exactly halfway, just slightly over halfway through that time period. And the best way to track progress on a construction project like this, where you have so many differing types of work being performed by various subcontractors, is do it by dollar value. So we look at the dollar value of the work that's been completed. We're lagging just a little bit behind. We're at about 40 to 45% complete dollar-wise, and we're 50% through our time schedule. You're probably aware of all the supply chain issues that are occurring right now. If you've done any projects at your home or anywhere, you may have had trouble securing various items that you've been trying to buy. I don't know, but in the commercial construction world, it's a very real issue. We had about a 4-week delay in securing all the structural block that was being used on the building. So we lost and then we've lost about another week on securing the steel trusses and the steel decking. So I'm just going to show you quickly some of these pictures. So pretty simple construction. It's not a complicated project by any means. Exterior walls are structural masonry. Interior floor is a steel joist with a steel deck. That's supported by that masonry wall. Just another view. So this is no interior walls yet. Those interior walls will be built soon. As soon as they get that floor deck completed up above, then the interior walls can start, and that will start probably as early as next week. This is up on the second floor. You can see the metal deck is installed, and there'll be a 4-inch concrete slab poured on top of that metal deck, which will occur tomorrow, weather permitting. And then as soon as that concrete has a chance to cure for about a week, then the roof trusses will be installed, and the roof can begin to be put into place. We don't anticipate any more significant material delays, but in this uncertain world with the pandemic going on, you never know. The one item that does concern us a little bit is the heating and cooling is provided by packaged rooftop units. There'll be 10 of them that sit on the roof. They've been ordered. The manufacturer has not committed to a delivery date and won't give us a date no matter how hard we push. And that we're finding that's typical on a lot of items. We've queried most of the subs who have significant amounts of work to be completed, and most of them are pretty confident that they can obtain the materials that they're going to need, but that's one unknown that could cause a delay. But barring any significant delays procuring materials like that, we anticipate that we're still going to hit our end of December timeline. So I don't know if you have any questions that I can answer, but that's pretty well in a nutshell where we're at. We're just slightly behind schedule, but we think we can still hit our December completion date.
Wow, that looks great. Thank
Yeah.
you, Bruce.
Okay.
Anybody have questions for Bruce?
I have completely forgotten, but were there additional expansion options for either of those high schools when they were built beyond these first expansions? So this is the one kind
Yeah,
of
this
natural
was
expansion.
the architect, when they built this school up in Idaho, it had those rooms on.
We took them off.
We took them off, and so now we're just putting them back. But beyond that, no, there was really no other plan at this point that's been designed.
If I remember correctly, the commons and central areas of the school, the gathering areas of the school, are built to accommodate 2,000 students. And when we left the 10 classrooms off at the beginning, those 10 classrooms will allow those two schools to go up to that 2,000 carrying capacity that the commons areas allow. And then they're kind of maxed out.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. You use every classroom for what it was intended. So, and when you don't fill up a high school or a building, things creep in.
Like
and-
preschool.
Huh?
Like preschool.
Yeah, like preschools. And you might have to do some moving.
Yeah. Okay,
Thanks for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for coming. Okay, and our Esr Plan. Wow, there are a lot of people here to present this.
Good. Did the laptop for the first presentation come up on your screens?
No.
It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. You're welcome to plug it in.
You need to switch things.
All right, we apologize. You have on your board agenda the grant that we will be submitting for this to the state, as well as the budget narrative. So you don't have this presentation, but we'll go through this. But all the information you have that is part of the presentation, with the exception of the first two slides that I will cover. I wanted to give you just a little brief context because this plan is tied to an overall act that was passed when COVID first began. It's called the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Recovery Act. That's what Esr stands for, basically. And so when COVID first started back in March of 2019, is that when that was? 2020.
2020.
Seems like that.
Feels like it's been 5 years. There's been basically 3 stimulus packages that passed. 2 passed under President Trump. The last one passed under President Biden. And the first 2, the general fund that the district received through Esr, what we call Esr 1, was $1.2 million total. And what I wanted you to understand as a board is where those funds were used over the last 18 months or so. So we spent $350,000 approximately, these are approximate numbers, on the March 13th professional development. If you remember back in COVID, we had basically a weekend to take our entire school system and flip it to an online system over about 4 or 5 days. And so the professional development, a lot of the pieces to accomplish that took place early on in that process. And then about $750,000 of that initial money was used to fund our online school, K-12, that we ran during that whole next year. So Esr 1 kind of continued throughout the remainder of the year. And then some of that money was spent on technology that we had to spin up to support that remote instruction that we did in the spring from March on to the rest of the school year. Esr 1 also had some individual grants come to the school district. One was in the form of, it's called a personal PPE grant for personal protective equipment. That was about $377,000. And we used that money to purchase masks, face shields, dividers, plexiglass for our offices, all of those types of things, hand sanitizer, and that took us through the school year last year. And again, that's money that was sent to the district. We expended that. Then when they asked us to do test to play, they sent us another $77,000, which we used for our high school testing for our players, and that pretty much we used all but a small amount of that to cover those costs. So there was no cost to the district for those, and then the state provided the tests for that. We had also a wireless grant. It was about $250K. That funded wireless hotspots for kids who had to be home learning in remote situations, that they could have internet access, and it works through the same technology as your phone. So no matter where they were in the valley, if they didn't have a good fiber link or something like that, we could provide hotspots to them. It also provided for wireless access points on our buses, 10 of our activity buses. And that technology, both of those technologies we're continuing to use. So even though we've expended the money, those funds will be used over the next 5 to 10 years, and it'll be a nice feature for our school buses. Kids can complete homework when they're on these long activity trips down to play. Of course, our region's pretty close until we get to region playoffs, and then, of course, the other schools in our region are at the other end of the state. So that will be a nice feature for those students to be able to continue to do homework on the buses. It's interesting because we do all the filtering for those, and we figured out a way so that when those buses are 300 miles away, it's as if the students are sitting inside our own district. And so all the filtering works and all of the same safety measures that we have in our classrooms. Esr 2 was in the amount of, so this would be the second stimulus package, was $4.6 million for the school district. And you can see the breakdowns for how most of those funds are being expended for elementary, summer, after school, in-school interventions. Michael here, who will be presenting in a minute, was responsible for our elementary programs. We got about close to 700 students. That was our goal, probably a little less than that, but over the summer, for summer programs for our elementary students, to catch any of them up that had gotten behind because of the impact of COVID. Those will continue, those after-school interventions, and another summer of those interventions through next year, and that's what that money is covering. Then we have some secondary summer activities. We worked with Cash High to do credit recovery. We have some after-school and in-school interventions going on in our secondary schools this year. We've put some supplies in place. We have some math assessments, reading assessments, and growth measures in place for our students, so we can actually do some diagnostic testing on these students and see which ones are behind and how we can remediate some of those. And Bev, who's still here, has done some amazing things in the elementary on that front with what we call iReady, which is a math assessment, and that was used heavily in our summer school program. So we didn't just guess where the kids were deficient. We could do some assessments and figure that out. So that money will continue. And then neither the Esr 1 or 2 monies really required board approval, but the Esr 3 monies, basically, and I'm going to turn this over to Michael and Brittany, but they require board approval this year, and that's why we're coming to you with our Esr 3 plans for the school district for the coming year. A couple provisions. They require board approval, so tonight we'll be giving you kind of the framework of our plan for where we're going to expend the Esr 3 monies. There's lots of categories we could expend those monies in, but we decided as a district that they say that you have to spend basically 20% of those on students. We want to propose that we spend almost all of the money on students, so that money goes directly into benefiting kids in our district over the next 3 years. So that's how our plan basically works, and you can see that. Once you look at this plan tonight, we're required to go get some public input. We've reached out to the schools for parents that will be willing to come and serve on a committee to go through this plan as well, give their input on where we're headed with the Esr 3 funds. Then we'll come back to you at your next board meeting, and after incorporating that public input, and ask for your approval of the plan. It's due on September 17th. So we have a little bit of time, but I think you moved your board meeting in September to the 19th, so we're kind of accelerating everything, 19th or 26th or something like that. All right, I'm going to turn the time over to Brittany. She's going to kind of give you some more context, and then her and Michael will kind of finish off. And it's been great to have these two. Michael's heading up our elementary efforts, and Brittany's heading up our secondary efforts, and has taken the lead on writing the Esr grant. So,
thanks, Tim. Just to give you a little bit of background, in order to begin the writing process, we do have to do a needs assessment, and so we gathered together individually our own data, and when I say we, it was a large group of us. So I looked at secondary data, Michael looked at elementary data, and then we've got a handful of people at the back. Alden represented behavior services, Robin represented ESL as well as elementary, Jenny represented special ed, and Jake represented literacy. Kurt represented mental health services. So we looked at our needs for all of those, and we decided to focus our grant on 5 main areas in regard to students, and that's the elementary component, secondary component, English language learner component, special ed, and then mental health and behavior services. And then, because it is essentially to help us with COVID, we did include a piece that will address COVID supplies and mitigation. So I'm going to turn the time over to Michael, and he can tell you a little bit about his piece and what the plan is for the elementary side.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Michael Torrey, and I've been teaching for about 16 years now in the district, and I have the honor this year to kind of work with this project. I've worked in the after-school program for about 13 years now, and so it's kind of near and dear to my heart, some of the stuff that we're doing with the elementary piece. As we got together and started looking at the data, it became pretty apparent right off the bat that COVID really has affected every community and every family and every student across our district. And as we started looking at some of our data here, so we'll look at just our language arts, math, and science data. 2017, 2018, 2019, if you look at all of our student demographics, we're making pretty steady progress pretty much in every category throughout those years. And then 2020 comes along, and obviously we didn't test in 2020, and then just tested just recently in the spring. So if you look there, language arts scores, we had a 7% decrease in proficiency, and then you can kind of see our major demographics there. As we look at some of these, our highest deficiency demographics were ELL and students with disabilities, although we had decreasing going through every category. So we were 7% here with language arts. We had 8.3% in math with our ELL and our students with disabilities on the end there, and the same with science. And so as we started thinking about our elementary plan, we really wanted it to be comprehensive. We wanted it to reach every community. We wanted every family to have access, and we really wanted every student to have an opportunity to benefit in some way. So when we started looking at the elementary, we took a school day approach as well as a out-of-school time, or an OST approach. And so I'm the REACH OST coordinator. We used to call it After School Club, but we do more than just after school. We do before school, summer school, after school. So the state started using the term OST, and we've adopted that as well. So when you see OST, that's really what it's referring to. Currently in our district, we've really only had 3 OST programs, pretty consistent. We've had some sporadic, but Canyon, Nibley, Lincoln have been pretty consistent with their programs. And we'll talk about the OST in a minute. The school day support that we're looking at, we're going to increase staffing for literacy. We're going to add some literacy aides. We're going to add ELL aides. We've added an instructional coach, math facilitators, a school psychologist, and some SEL staff, which works with our Project Aware component in our district. In addition to adding that during the school day, each of those departments also have some supporting curriculum resources that they will use, and some of them we've already talked about, iReady, to help us identify some of those kids, which we've used in the summer to really help us seek out and see which kids really had more deficiencies than others, and how can we identify those students. So as part of our school day support, we have this piece. When we go to the REACH OST support, so these are all our before and after school programs. So this year, as I said, we've currently been running about 3 programs, but next year, and really for the next 3 years, we're going to put a program in all 17 elementaries. These REACH OST programs kind of have 2 main components to them. They have the Learning Lab. The Learning Lab is a piece where we identify students through things like Acadience and iReady, and we're trying to identify which skills they're missing in their curriculum. So it might be a 5th grader who is missing skills from 4th and 3rd grade. So we're going to use some of these curriculum supports to identify them, and then we invite them personally through the use of like our tag team, our student assistance teams that all our schools have, and teacher recommendations, and then they'll come and we'll provide small group instruction for them to fill those curricular gaps that they might be missing. And then after school, we have the homework support, where and this is open to all students. Anybody can sign up and come, and we'll focus on homework support. We'll reteach lessons from that current day's work. Teachers will pre-teach difficult lessons that are coming up to give kids kind of a head start into some of those more difficult lessons. So those are the 2 main components that every school will have. Each of the elementaries will also have transportation. So if kids stay till that 4:30 block, so school will get out at 3:35, our program will run until 4:30, and we'll provide transportation home for those kids so that it is accessible to everybody. We will run 3 more summer programs. We have 8 summer programs that we'll run over the next 3 summers. We'll do transportation to and from those programs as well. They have 3 main components with those. We do the learning lab, just like the regular school year. We have a social emotional component where we focus on mindfulness and resilience. And then we have an enrichment component for each of those programs. As Tim mentioned, as part of the Esr 2 program, we did run a program this summer. We had all 17 elementary schools participate. Right there in May, we reached out to all of them. We asked them to identify kids that they thought could benefit from extra support this summer. We enrolled 737 students across 17 schools. Of those 737, 673 came and attended some piece of our program, and we had an average daily attendance of 465 kids. So that's the size of an elementary school, of a very targeted population who received a lot of really great instruction. We had 130 teachers, which we did compensate, but 130 teachers at the end of a long COVID 2020 year knew those kids needed extra support, and they stepped up in a big way for us. They ran a terrific program. I've heard nothing but positive remarks all across the county. It really was a terrific experience, not only for the kids. I heard positive things from parents, and I heard really great things from the teachers. They were excited to do it, and they feel like it made a big difference. We're excited to continue that for 3 more summers and 3 more school years, and really help every aspect of our community. So, thank you. Do you have any questions about the elementary piece?
I was going to say, with this plan, it sounds like you need a lot of people. And so where do they come from?
Yeah, so we're using a lot of our staff that we already have in-house. And so we'll pay teachers extra to come in early or stay late. We use a lot of parapro support as well. And we've even hired some high school kids. We hire some high school students to work our summer program. And they did a phenomenal job. They have great support from teachers who kind of bring them in under their wing. It's good exposure to kids who are maybe thinking about a profession in education. Mm-hmm. And so depending on when we build our staff, so our schools are currently building those staff, we'll reach out to the high schools. Canyon, Lincoln, Nibley, they use high school students as well as college students already. And so we'll just continue to build it. Most of the staff comes in-house. And so they just they have the opportunity to extend their day.
Okay.
So in the elementary, it works really nice for some of those teachers. So.
All right. Thank you.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
How'd the first day of school go? It's really nice of you both to be here after school just started, by the way, but I'm just wondering, how's it going?
I've heard really great things. I have not seen my kids yet. I called each of them to see how it went. My kids loved the first day of school. They love school anyway. My wife's also a teacher. Had a terrific experience today as well. So I've heard nothing but positive things. So it's been really good.
I have one question. Yes. And I'm just wondering, with all of the changes and all of the great programs that our district is coming up with to help the teachers, help the students, does the university education departments throughout Utah ever hear any of this information that they can incorporate into the teaching of their future teachers?
I know our district has kind of a liaison with Utah State specifically, where they do talk about some of those types of things. The rest of the state, I wouldn't know that for sure. I know we partner in the after-school programs with Utah State. They send us, we probably have 30 to 40 Utah State students that work at our before and after-school program. So there is a tie-in, a link with Utah State, but I'm not sure about the rest of the state. So.
I'm just wondering about this because this is awesome, what this district is doing.
Right.
And it just seems like it would be nice if the colleges, universities, could start to help train teachers to do these things that are so awesome for students. Yeah. So it was just a wonder.
Yeah,
I was just
great
wondering.
recommendation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Michael? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, for secondary, I did not include the tables on the PowerPoint with the data, but it's all in the grant. But I'll give you a little bit of a summary. We saw scores decline, and like elementary, we have been seeing a steady, prior to COVID, a steady increase in our proficiencies across most student groups. And then after COVID, we were disappointed to see that we had gone down. So with the ACT, we went down by 0.6 points at the minimum, and up to down, depending on which subgroup you were looking at. Some students even dropped those subgroups by 4 points. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot if we say 0.6 points, but with the ACT, anything that's 0.3 is statistically significant. So if a student group, such as our Latino and Black students, they dropped 4 points on the ACT in the English last year, 2 overall in the composite. That's significant, very significant. So that's a pretty big decrease. As far as the Utah Aspire Plus, which is our grades 9 through 10, we saw a very, very large decline, anywhere from 8% to, let's see, I think our highest was 33% in math at Mountain Crest. The South End was hit a little bit harder with between 20 to 30% declines in proficiency. The North End was a little bit higher or less of a deficiency, anywhere from 8 to 18%. So the high schools were hit really hard. Middle schools were also hit, but their declines weren't as bad. My phone won't let me look at it. On the RISE assessments, we saw about 6%, between 4 to 6% proficiency declines for the middle school students. And then that's across all the subject areas. I believe that the reason for the high decline at the high school level is the high school students were more significantly impacted by quarantines. We had a lot more students who got COVID and were out of school during that time, during the last school year. So our approach for accelerated learning is to incorporate some after-school and or summer programs at all of the secondary schools. We're budgeting in about 4 teachers after school a day, up to 5, that for 4 days a week that they can stay after school for an hour and a half and do some targeted interventions. I'm proposing that we put in an after-school coordinator who can help coordinate the interventions by inviting students to come in, working with the school SAT teams and identifying students who need an invitation, and then reaching out to parents, encouraging them to get there. At the middle school level, busing is a huge concern, so we would piggyback off of the elementary transportation, and we would provide busing after school for students who stay, and that would be for any student who stays, not just those who are typically in the walking range. It would be, every student would be eligible for that transportation. I'd also like to include a 0.75 FTE for each school so that they can offer in-school interventions, because research shows the best interventions happen during the school day. And so what I'm going to work with the principals at each school to incorporate more co-taught classes with the special ed students, some directed studies classes with special ed students, some tutorials for ESL students, and then also identifying students who are below grade level in math and reading, and offering some intervention classes for them, some that are more targeted towards reading and math. Because our Latino community was hit very hard, I would like to include a parent liaison. Now, the parent liaison wouldn't work primarily with Latino students, but that would be one of their large focuses, is that they would work with the SAT team, the after-school coordinator, and work with parents, because one big piece that we've noticed is parents are having a hard time. So the parent liaison would work to make sure that parents are aware of the interventions that are needed, help parents understand what those interventions will do, and then also help bridge the gap between community and school, help provide resources or access to resources that the family may need. Maybe they need computers, maybe they need food pantry assistance, things like that to help their families. So the parent liaison would help in that regard, and that would be a part-time position at all of the secondary schools, excluding Cache High. Cache High has a lot of other resources, so I didn't include them in the FTE or after school or parent liaison. Then also, Cache High has been instrumental in helping us with credit recovery at all of the high schools, and so we would continue to utilize them for funding credit recovery for students who have failed classes over the last year or two due to the pandemic, and so students wouldn't have to pay for those credits. And then also we need to provide some subscription programs for those intervention classes like ALEX and Achieve 3000, and so a portion of the funding would go to pay for those. What questions do you guys have about the secondary plan?
I have a question about the parent liaison role. Is that, so you said that would be part-time. Is that one person in the district covering all the secondary schools, or a person in each secondary school?
It would be a person in each secondary school that would be there for 15 hours a week.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? So I have a general question. So this grant, this ESR 3 grant is good for 3 years, right?
Yes.
What happens after that?
That's a really good question, and we've talked about that. Some of the bigger questions are, the FTE specifically, or the parent liaison position. Once there's no funding for it, what happens to it? Coming from Ridgeline, we've had a parent liaison that I've paid for from my TSSA, and I'm pretty sure that some of the schools will realize how impactful having a parent liaison is, and they will choose to write that into their TSSA plans. If they don't, then that would be a position, if they found it's not valuable for them, then I think they would just lose the position. As for after school and school day interventions, hopefully schools can figure out ways to do it within the school day afterwards, that they can use TSSA, trust lands, if they want to continue the interventions, they could pay for them from those.
And that's one reason we're using staff who's already in the school, so that we're not bringing on a whole group of people that we later have to let go.
Oh, yeah.
So we're using staff we currently have. They have the availability to earn a little bit extra money right now where COVID things, it might be beneficial to their family. So it not only does it help kids, students, helps teachers, their own financial situation at home. And then, like I say, as we transition, every school has a different need. So, for example, maybe Providence likes the learning lab piece and they see value in maybe keeping that piece and adding it into their TSSA plan. But Millville really liked the homework piece and they could choose to incorporate that. And they most likely would be able to afford the entire part of it, but they could choose bits and pieces that were beneficial for each of their schools without it affecting too much of their business. So it kind of gives them a trial run of 3 years to see what works really well for their population, and then they don't really have to let anybody go at the end of it.
Okay.
Right. The only position that I'm proposing that would be new would be the parent liaison. Everything else would be serviced by existing teachers, working it into your schedules. I mean, if you pull out if you identify 30 students who need a reading intervention, those 30 students would have been served in some other way anyway. So it's not like we're just maybe offering smaller class sizes and giving them those interventions. So we don't necessarily need additional staff. We just need additional funding to have smaller class sizes for some of those intervention classes.
Any other questions?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, for English language learners, Robin came up with these proposals. We are in need of additional hours for EL aides. So we would provide additional funding for an additional hour at each of our schools. Professional development for the ESL teachers so that they can have training on the programs that we use. And then substitute teachers to help when we're doing WIDA testing so that teachers can focus on the students and the substitutes can be a support there. And then also curriculum for EL. Do you guys have any questions on the EL side? Robin's here if you have any questions for her. Okay. All right, and then special education. Special education will actually be served through both of the other secondary and elementary. So Jenny did not have a big ask for what she needed for elementary because we've included interventions for her students in our plans. But she is in need of some curriculum, so it would pay for several different programs that they would use to support students, as well as some iPads for speech and post-high. Do you guys have any questions about the SPED ask? All right, and then finally, for our mental health services and behavior supports, we have, there is data in the grant if you want to look at it, but there was a significant increase in mental health needs as well as behavior needs over the last year and a half. And so with the Esr 2 grant, they were able to hire a school psychologist to help with the behavior side of things. So we would continue to have that behavior, the school psychologist for the rest of the Esr 3 grant, and 2 interns to help with behavior. That would be 2 psychology interns. Also a social emotional learning specialist who would help to bring some social emotional curriculum to the schools and help with the social emotional learning for students. And then we would also like curriculum to help that specialist. And then our Project Aware grant, which has been instrumental in helping with mental health within the district, will end in the next 2 years. And so we would like to use our Esr 3 to continue that for 1 more year because it's been absolutely needed in our schools. So we see that would tie in nicely with this grant. Do you guys have any questions on the mental health services or behavior supports? Kurt and Alden are here for those 2 things.
I think it's impressive.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing all that work. My gosh.
Yeah, it was very fun. I like to look at data, so it really was fun for me. But yeah, so we would love any feedback. We can tweak as needed. We're going to meet with stakeholders in the next week or so, and can take whatever feedback, make tweaks if needed.
Thank you.
Last year, substitute teachers were hard to come by, and several pieces of the plan require substitutes. So what if you can't get them?
So the only piece of the plan that needs substitutes is for the EL portion for
WIDA testing.
The WIDA testing. So if we can't get them, then we'll just use the funding to probably go to COVID supplies would be my guess. I forgot to bring in that last piece. We are including some funding to pay for masks, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, as those are needed throughout the next couple of years. So my guess is anything that we're not able to do, we'll just have to figure it out. With WIDA testing, we figure it out every year. Usually somebody else helps in the school. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for all your work and all of you coming. Wow, that's a great support.
Thank you.
The next item on our reports agenda is public input discussion. Tim.
There's my phone.
Found it.
So I handed out, I don't know if you've handed it around to the board, but I think you all have, at your request, some information on public input guidelines. And we've just barely tweaked what goes on each board agenda each time, so the public knows that they're able to come and give public input. And then the longer piece that Terry read tonight is the draft of what we proposed for the public input guidelines. I had a wonderful discussion with Valerie out in the hall after her public input this evening and was able to answer additional questions that she had. I think that's a good format and worked nicely. Terry handed me some suggestions from a board expert on with some public input guidelines, and we may look at tweaking a couple of other aspects of our policy or procedure. So I thought those were some good suggestions. Any of you have any other suggestions with regards to that?
I want to ask board members, do you feel like we need to create a policy regarding public input so that we have it in policy?
We can either do it as
Need to
policy.
formalize it? Just formalize it?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We could either do it as a policy or put it in our handbook.
Well, policy is, the handbook isn't necessarily a public document.
True.
And policy is, so that, I'm just thinking of if people are interested in looking at what we allow or those types of things. I mean, I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't, I'm just asking for input here.
I actually like the idea of having it as a policy because, like Tim mentioned earlier, if someone says, well, why do we only have 3 minutes to present our information to you, we can say, well, that's the guideline that we have in our policy. So, the policy could eventually be changed if we decided to do that, but then you've got some concrete evidence to fall back on if anyone questions.
Yeah, I like formalizing it. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I really like the opportunity to visit with her out here because I think sometimes the feeling, I like the change that you made because I think the feeling sometimes is I get to give some public input, but I don't get any back and forth because you can't stop the board meeting and do back and forth. So to have the opportunity to come out in the hall and say, what are some other additional concerns you have or questions, I think gives them an opportunity to give us additional feedback, gives us an opportunity to hear more of those nuances as we explain some answers to their questions. And then we can give you feedback on, some of those issues so that you understand as a board what some other issues that might have come up were, I think.
Well, I think it's nice, too, to have experts address the issues that they have instead of something that we maybe don't know that much about, but you do.
Right. And she didn't have any questions I couldn't answer tonight, but if she had, I can always, get her phone number and reach out and respond to any of those as well.
Well, I like being able to give them to someone who's physically here. While they're here, they made the effort to come.
Right.
And to speak, and they need to be answered in some way while they're here.
Right.
But like you said, we can't stop the meeting. And so if you feel like that worked really well, I'd like to continue doing that. I'd like us to continue that. And if we're going to, Larry just left, so I will email him and ask him. Well, you've almost created the policy here with what you've written. If you want to look at that, those documents I sent you from Madam McFarland and see if there's any things that you recommend that we add to it, then we can just make this the policy.
Okay.
And because it's pretty much all there.
If we're going to go that far to codify this, then I don't want to increase the amount of work or anything, but I guess I'd have to be convinced that was worthwhile because once you actually codify something like that, then it really inhibits say future boards from doing the work that they think is appropriate under the whatever guidelines we have from the state. policies sometimes that are written in cases like this might seem good in theory, but they end up creating a tradition or a practice that might actually, future boards might find to be detrimental. But then at that point, when it's calcified in policy, then it's harder for other boards to be creative. Again, within whatever state guidelines we have. So I guess all I'm saying is if we're going to make a policy out of this, I'd like to explore that a little bit. What are the state guidelines for public meetings in terms of public input, and are there models in other districts where they actually have codified this? Just the fact that we've encouraged, Tim and others in the district to address concerns when patrons show up is kind of a demonstration of how we're trying to handle public input flexibly in a way that responds to the public. And so I'm a little bit reluctant to set things in stone for that reason. But I'm not against it necessarily. I'm just kind of wondering if there are state guidelines that dictate what we should be doing.
And I would speak to that a little because I went and looked at other policies in districts on public input just to get a flavor. And I felt like a lot of them were so rule-oriented that it kind of hampered the public's ability to give input because they got so rule-driven that you can't do this and you can't do this and you can't do this. So I liked how ours is more open and we want your input, but we've got to have a way to do it so that we don't stop our meeting and that we want to get answers and we want feedback, and that's important to us. So I like the read on this, whether we make it into policy or not. I think it's a better practice than setting up a bunch of rules that maybe prohibit or make someone feel like they're not heard by the board, because I think what you want is you want feedback from your public.
Sometimes policies are where creativity and flexibility go to die. So,
good.
So I just want to
Well
make
put.
sure that we know exactly what we're doing before we set that in stone.
Well put.
Well, the other option we have is we already have the short piece on every agenda. And we could put the long piece in board docs in the library under miscellaneous, so it's there, so we all know where it is, so that we can, or you all can ask me where it is and I can tell you where it is when we need to read it.
I think Carolyn, for the last part of the last year, I asked her if she would just put it on the public input, kind of like the other documents that we have, so it would come up anytime you wanted to click on it and read it in the public, which would.
But it doesn't.
It's not there now. But I did this week send her an email and ask her if she would be willing to do that.
That would be fine too.
So, I mean, we have a lot of options.
Just keeping it a part of our agenda instead of making it policy.
Right.
It can just be a practice. So you just start off with it being a practice. If it works well, make it a policy. That's what I'd recommend.
I thought it worked fine tonight, right before we had our one.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that first. I'll have Carolyn add the long part to the public input part of the agenda, when we open it, we can see that. Otherwise, the short part is just what shows up on the agenda. And we'll see how that goes for a while. And you'll give us any input that you have after reading Emmett Farland's information.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Tim.
There is a little section in here, too, this convening meetings, which are open to the public. It's a little handbook that comes from the Utah School Board Association.
Okay.
Right? And I don't know if it has anything in it that you would want to add, but I'll tell you the page. It's on page 5 of this.
Okay.
She has marginal notes written on page 5 too. It's all completely annotated, her copy of that book. Look at how well used that is. It's impressive.
He's kidding.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, Board member reports. Let's do Kathy's first because it will be shorter, I think, than Randall's.
Okay. All right, so at our last meeting, I took the assignment to come up with some ideas and assignments on how we could have better relationships with our legislators. And if you just open up the attachment there, this is not in stone, this is just some ideas. And first of all, the top part there is your assignment for the legislator that you would kind of focus your attention on. And under the email section, it just says email thanks at the beginning and ending of the yearly legislative session to your assigned legislator. Email concerns and explanations of various bills as directed by USBA. Does that sound like a reasonable assignment for your assigned legislator?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, then the State of the District report. Ask Carolyn to send copies of the State of the District report to each legislator before the legislative sections begin. And she did do that last year. And I think they might have got a couple of copies because I sent some to them as well. The one thing that I forgot to put on here was that we also sent them this little pamphlet. So each one of them had this before they went into the legislative section. So I think I would add that on too, that we make sure that our legislator that we're in charge of gets one of these, and we can do it, with one person doing it, or ask Carolyn to send it out or whatever. And then on the school visits and luncheon.
Before you move on that one.
Okay.
Sending something to a legislator right before the legislative session begins is probably not a very good idea.
So I gave them to them at the luncheon.
Okay.
And they all said thanks. And I don't know if they read them or not. But
well, the State of the District report is, because it's so many pages.
I think we said that in the spring.
And so comprehensive. At the anywhere close to the legislative session, it's not likely to be looked at.
So maybe in the spring after it has been printed?
Sure.
Would be better? Okay, I'll change that. And then other ideas as a board or individually prepare a thank you for each legislator at the luncheon. We did that one year with candy bars, and maybe we can just have a little statement. Attend Thursday night online legislative update when possible. I can't remember what we called it, but it's the town hall, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that even works for us, but I'm open to any other ideas. Anybody else have corrections or would like some things deleted or things that you would like added? If you look over it and come up with some ideas, why don't you just email me? Okay. If I don't hear for you by the next meeting, I'll just type this up as kind of official.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thanks for doing it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy.
Okay, Randall.
Okay, well, a little more than a year ago, we lost a wonderful educator, teacher, and friend in Kelly Rindlisbacher, and I don't know, for some reason I felt impressed the last little while that it would be nice if we could pay tribute to him in some way. And one thing I was thinking here that might not be very difficult and very expensive to do is maybe name, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a school, but if we could name an auditorium or a building or just something after him, just so we could pay tribute to him. And, for example, this building here, could be the Kelly Rindlisbacher Technology Center. And so that was just something I just wanted to throw out and see what the rest of you think.
Is there a precedent in the district for that, Superintendent? I mean, has that been done before?
Well, I don't think it's been done in this district.
Okay.
In the district I came from, Blackfoot School District, all of the elementary schools are named after educators who have served in that district. So it just depends on, I guess, the mindset and I don't know how that practice got going in Blackfoot. I just know all of the schools were named after elementary principals who had served long careers in in that town. Mike, am I wrong? We don't have any even auditoriums or anything, I don't think.
No, and there's a district policy that talks about naming of facilities that probably I'll look at too.
So it's just something that you'll find it varies from district to district. Yeah.
One other idea, when I was teaching at Cedar Ridge, we had a teacher who passed away. And so at the end of the year, there was a special award that a boy and a girl student always got for being outstanding, and it was named after him.
We have done that with one principal in our district, and that plaque hangs in the district office to this day, but it's given to a teacher who exemplifies what he. So I appreciate it being brought up. Kelly was a friend to all of us and a wonderful educator. It's probably just something for you to think about and mull over and look at any board policies. We can do a little research for you and see what we have in our own policy manual that might be in there and nobody's looked at it for a long time. But we can do that for you.
Well, the policy says that school buildings will not be named after a city or town within Cache County, and that the Board of Education reserves the right to name all new buildings that are constructed or purchased. This will be accomplished after community and patron input.
Yeah, I remember when we
Pardon? Well, this one is called naming of facilities.
Something about when someone passes, though, an employee who passes away, it didn't allow us to do that.
Would it be under human resources?
I know there's one for students, but I know. But anyway. Okay. Okay.
I think it's a great idea, though, Randall, and I'm wondering if it's something that the community council could discuss or something. Just talk about what his role there exemplified. What he was where he really made an impact, and think about some creative way of making that happen. So that memory is preserved.
Except that we have a lot of great educators who have passed that we haven't named anything for.
Right. Like there was one at Mountain Crest a few years ago, a science teacher. His family chose to do a scholarship each year, right, Mike? So, that's a family thing, which is a little bit different, but.
Sure, but that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, though. Like some kind of recognition or something that could be carried forward, that could be tied to something like a sponsorship or something like that.
Do you ever go to their school community council meetings at Heritage?
No, it's not in my area.
I go to those.
Oh, you go. I wonder.
But then Nibley would probably be that's where he was the principal.
Oh, Nibley. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they would have an idea of something that would be acceptable after we find out what the policy.
We have our first one in 2 weeks, so I could go find out.
I like the recognition with a plaque or something, but you're right. Then do you do that for everyone? So that becomes kind of challenging. Well, something to think about. Anyway.
Might be nice just to get a little clarification on the policy and, just see what it says here. It'd be nice if we could just find out for sure.
Okay, so do we want to bring this back to talk about it again?
Yeah, we'll bring you some information back and just so you'll have whatever's in our policy and then you can look.
And some community feedback maybe as well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Anyone else have a board member report to add? How was your first visit to a UHSAA meeting?
Very interesting. I don't really have anything to report, but it was very interesting, so.
Okay, that was today, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you for going and being there.
No.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, my only report is that I have two things. The board docs library, almost all of the documents in there are dated and out of date with names and people, places, all of that kind of stuff. And Kathy is still the president, and Roger is still the vice president in the board docs library.
Well, it sounds like you guys better switch places.
That's right, we better. And the school principals are not listed completely, anyway.
Okay, I get the point.
So Carolyn usually just takes the ones that she prints off for us, like our packet at the retreat, and just puts them on.
Well, she printed off all of those, because that's how I know, because Roger told me.
On the printed ones?
Yeah, the ones that she gave
In
us
the red
last week,
folder?
she printed off of that library, and they're
Okay, gotcha.
they're incomplete
Oh, okay.
and outdated. And nobody else looks at that except us, and probably just me. But anyway, just a note. But the good note that I wanted to say is I went to the Cash Education Foundation board meeting last week with Dale and Jared and a bunch of other people. And my takeaway from that meeting was how grateful I am that that organization exists. Because Terry Lewis reported that in the last 20 years, CEF has put $10.5 million into our schools, which is phenomenal. Through the different activities or the different awards and grants that they offer. And I so appreciate the people who had the foresight to begin the Cash Education Foundation, and I have to say Deloy Hansen, because he is by far the largest donor to Cash Education Foundation, and I appreciate his great support of that organization as a way for people to donate and help the schools. And that was just impressive to me, that number. So anyway, that's my report. On to you, Miss Dr. Norton.
Thank you. Just a couple of items. One, we had a wonderful opening of school today. We had a few bus issues, very minor, but to the parents whose kids didn't get picked up, they were major. And I know Wayne, he'll have that all worked out by morning. We had somebody from the district office at every school today. We reported back this afternoon what we had found, and we have a few isolated COVID incidences of people who probably contracted it sometime during the summer and were not able to help us out on opening day. For the most part, all staff members made it back healthy and well from the summer. They're excited. They've all got some concern about everybody coming back together without masks, and that concern is real. It's more real for some of the adult staff in our buildings and for kids who have other areas of their life that are giving them concern already, and then they come to school in hope not to pick up something there. So, but probably have got back to our pre-COVID numbers in our elementaries. So we're getting a little crowding in our fourth, fifth, and sixth grades. And secondary, we never know till we get to October 1 how many kids are really on the rolls and how many we've got to clear up and not count as members of our student body. But secondary is and has been where we've been growing the most in this district for the last few years. So those are mainly accounted for by move-ins. We maybe got back to our kindergarten level this year, hopefully, but kindergarten classes have for the last few years have been declining in numbers, and we knew that was coming. It was projected by the University of Utah demographic study a long time ago, and it's just followed pretty much true. It does bottom out, and but there are other things that have happened in our country since that report was put together, so it might not be as good a predictor of the students we're going to have in the future. So, but a great start. There's excitement, and secondary is always a place where we've already played football games before we had a day in school, and so it's just a great year without heat at the beginning of the school years that was really uncomfortable for both students and teachers in some of our schools. So that was also very nice, and we should get through the weekend. Next week it'll probably start getting warm again. Let me just alleviate some concern with Esr money. It was never designed to be something that would continue on forever. It's to mitigate what happened during 2021 and before that, at the end of the school year before that. We will use the money to the very best ability. We know that we know how to teach the majority of our kids in our school district. They are the top performing kids in the state. We haven't been as successful with our ELL students, and we need to be doing a better job there. We'd like to do a better job with our special ed kids too. So this money, the concentration of the funds, should help us get everybody back on task, and when that money is gone, we'll have people back where they need to be, and if from that point we know how to teach and how to get the students to learn. We will learn some things, hopefully, by spending some additional funds on our ELL learners and on our special ed kids that might help us to concentrate our funds when we get 3 years out. So, but that's a marvelous group of people you had here tonight presenting to you, and they know what they're talking about, and just having a little extra money. We wouldn't want to go through what we've gone through as a country in order to be in this predicament, but with those funds, we'll use them judiciously to get our students back on task and up to where they need to be, and we'll continue to do the things that have made this district a high-performing district that it is. So, other than that, onward and upward tomorrow, huh?
Anyone else? Anyone out there? All right, we're adjourned since we've reached the end of this agenda.
Did you notice that the strategic plan is right